Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. This is where accounting professionals just like you come to learn the most efficient and powerful ways to grow their firm, sharpen their sales skills, and have consistent increasing revenue. We cover topics from sales, networking, handling objections, negotiation, pricing, finding those ideal clients, and how to get rid of the ones that just don't suit you and how to set those boundaries so you can stop giving away your time, working for free, putting yourself on sale, and really start to get paid for the value and the worth that you bring to your clients. You'll learn tips, strategies, as well as hear others from personal interviews from successful accounting professionals. This podcast will show you exactly how to create the firm and life of your dreams full of abundance. Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. Today we have a very special guest, and our special guest is an accountant, a podcaster, entrepreneur who specializes in financial technology. He's been named twice in Accounting Today's list of the top 100 most influential people and CPA Practice Advisor 40 under 40 in the accounting profession. He is also the creator of something really cool called Earmark CPE, which is an app that offers NASBA-approved CPEs for listening to your favorite accounting and tax podcast. The Abundant Accountant Podcast is also on Earmark CPE if you want some bonus CPE credits. He is also the host of the Cloud Accounting Podcast. But before we welcome our very special guest to the show, if you are sick and tired of working 14 hours a day or more, sacrificing your time with family and friends, sick of tax season that's literally around the corner, and completely exhausted of being on the financial roller coaster ride, I want you to know it's not your fault. I understand that really nobody is teaching or training you on really how to fix these problems and connect the dots. So if you want to step up and take control over your firm's profitability, double your revenue this year with ease, and have confidence to start charging premium fees and pricing your clients the way you want and not being terrified if they leave you, then here's what I have in store for you. My team and I have set aside the time in the next couple days to speak to you personally about how you can apply a lot of the ideas to your firm today. So head on over to theabundantcall.com to book your call. Whatever your biggest challenge is in your firm, I want you to know I've seen it and I know how to overcome it and help you. So go ahead and book your call over at theabundantcall.com. I want to share with you also what we'll cover on our 1-hour call. Number one, we're going to get crystal clear on where your firm is at right now and what are the things that are keeping you stuck or in that I can't go this next tax season like this again next year. We'll also identify where you want to be with your firm and in your life. So number one, you get paid first and up front. We're going to talk about that with Blake today on the podcast. But also, how do you avoid all the potential pitfalls along the way? And number three, we're going to plan out the exact next steps you need to take to make sure you double your firm revenue this year. So head on over to theabundantcall.com. And now let's welcome our special guest, Blake Oliver, to the show. Welcome, Blake, to the show.
Hi, Michelle. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming back. It's been a little while, so I'm excited to have you back here on the Abundant Accountant Podcast. It's always an honor. But before we start, could you just share with everyone, who you are and what you do, because you have some really cool stuff. And I think everyone needs to know about how your latest venture, because everyone here probably needs some CPE credits. And I've already done your intro, but I just think it's always best to come from you too. So if you could just do that for 60 seconds or less, and then we'll dive into today, because a lot of it's about having the right technology in your back pocket to not only save you time, but also have more dollars coming into your firm. So that's what we're talking about today.
You got it. I won't give you my life story. This is not going to be a 10-minute webinar intro, which
okay,
I did.
Good.
I did a lot of those. So I got into marketing and I got into creating content, doing webinars. I was a product marketer at a company called Flowcast. I was a CPA before that. I had my own small practice. I worked for a year in a big practice and I couldn't handle that pace of things. So I got into tech. And while I was doing technology companies, I started a podcast called the Cloud Accounting Podcast. And we are now the #1 accounting and bookkeeping podcast in the world by downloads. We've been doing that for 4 years. We went full time with it last year. And when I say we, I mean my co-host David Leary and I. And every week we talk about what's new in accounting and technology. And we've been doing it every week for 4 years without a break. So we're just going to keep doing that. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It has made me a much better speaker, I feel, made me more comfortable. I highly recommend everybody find a friend, and just start creating something, do something online like that. It really helps when you have a friend to do it. Yeah. And we were getting questions from our listeners after a few years saying, hey, I learned so much from the podcast. How do I get CPE for it? Sort of as a joke. But we took that joke seriously. And so 2 years ago, I started working on Earmark CPE. It's an app that allows you to get CPE credit for listening to podcasts like the Abundant Accountant podcast.
Yeah, we're on Earmark, so you can go listen and get your CPE credits. It's a 2-for-1 special. I'm
counting now. There are, as we record this, you've got 9 episodes on there. And hundreds of people have earned CPE for listening to this podcast on Earmark, and I'm so happy to have you on it. So
awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a genius idea. I remember when you and David were talking about it, and I was like, gosh, that's genius. That's fantastic, because I think there's so many firm owners that, are driving or walking or trying to walk and get some exercise because we sit all day. And like, what a way to get your CPEs every single year. And instead of cramming it all at the last minute, you can just sign up and you can listen to one a week, or you get one CPE a week.
Yeah, one for free a week. Yeah.
One for free every single week. And if you just block it out and schedule it, it just, great things come from that. And kudos to you for great accounting technology, because I think that's a piece of technology that's benefiting your license for whatever you have, your CPA, your EA license, whatever it is. And you don't have to spend extra time, because I think like one of the biggest problems a lot of firm owners have is lack of time. Mm-hmm. They're overworked and, we have just too much on our plate. So I think talking about the technology and having standardized processes so we're paid and more efficient is a good thing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the talent crunch is real. Fewer accountants every year, fewer CPAs every year. People just aren't having as many babies as they used to. That's the fact of it. It's been going on for decades. I only have one kid. I'm not having more.
0.
Right?
I have a dog.
Yeah. There are more dogs now in this country than children.
Oh, I believe it.
Now, you can feel bad about it, whatever. Some people think it's horrible. Some people think it's great. I just think it's a fact of life, and we have to adapt to it, right?
Yeah.
And so what do we do when there are fewer workers? We have to use technology to increase our efficiency, to be more productive. And so I think that's why our show has done well, is that it's starting to become a real business case. You have to implement tech in order to keep up with the demand. So I'm eager to talk to you about tech and accounting today.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about tech and accounting. I'm always excited to talk about how a firm owner can increase revenue, increase profitability, even if their expenses go up because they have to invest in a piece of technology, but also save on the human side. So, yeah.
But you know what, Michelle, the thing that you do that is important is, and I've realized this as I've matured, you can't just implement technology without having a process and having a vision, right? A lot of times people skip to the tech. They think that's going to solve things, but they aren't doing their sales process right, for instance. And so if you apply technology to a bad sales process or a bad marketing, it's going to be bad, right? It's not going to help. So you're doing
the sales process. I still believe, and I mean, obviously I'm passionate about it, and that's all we do at the Abundant Accountant. If you can't convert, you're never going to have any top line revenue,
right?
Or it's going to be really low. So you won't be able to afford the technology or have a profitable firm. So you'll have a job and then you won't need the technology.
Yeah. So if your conversion rate is really low and you apply technology to increase the efficiency, you still got like a low conversion rate, right? It doesn't help.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say the biggest reason people or not the biggest reason, the biggest challenge most firm owners think they have is a lead problem. And when we have our conversations and have our calls, just to make sure they're a good fit and all that, what we uncover is that we actually have a conversion problem.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many leads, and you just said that there's not as many CPAs, accounting firm owners, as there used to be because people are not having as many babies. So now you have less firm owners, same amount of people needing the services, if not more, businesses, individuals. So now you have 2 engagements for one person. Yet you don't need any more leads. We actually have a conversion problem.
Yep.
And the other thing about conversion too, Blake, is that, you can put all the technology behind it, but if it's not priced right and you don't feel like you're being paid your value or your worth, and you feel underappreciated by your clients, and I could just keep going down the list, then no technology is going to fix that problem either.
I think Jason Statz, like last year on Twitter, and he's big in tech too, so I follow him. He posted like an analysis of increasing your prices versus increasing your efficiency with technology. And hands down, increasing your prices has a much bigger impact on the bottom line when you do the math, when you do the accounting. So yeah, I'm with you on that. But I feel like it's got to be both, right? You got to do both at the same time.
They go hand in hand.
Well, and the other thing with conversions is like, I feel like a lot of times, and I've been guilty of this too, the reason that we fail to convert, and when we say conversions, do we need to explain that? Like we're meaning simply...
We can convert. We can convert that. We can explain what a conversion is. I think it's always really important to define what we're talking about. Everyone has a different definition. Mm-hmm. Like what I hear from a lot of firm owners is when they think of sales, they think about finding the client. That's not sales. That's a marketing effort.
Right.
Sales and marketing are 2 different things. So I think it's really important to always hone in on the definitions of what we're talking about, just because I think most people listening, and you guys can email me if I'm wrong, you didn't think you were signing up for a 24/7 sales career either. Or like, oh my God, I have to market. I have to get clients. I need to do sales. Oh, that's the conversion and getting paid part. There's so many elements when you're just like, all I want to do is do the tax plan, or I just want to do the resolution work. I just want to do the technical work. I don't want to deal with any of this other stuff. Or like what Blake's going to talk about today, the accounting technology that can really help standardize your process and make sure you're paid up front, to go along with what I always talk about. So yeah, I think, what is the definition of conversions in your world?
Well, I think you said it right. Is a lot of people think of what we need to do is get the lead, right? Get the person talking to us. Usually that's not the issue. It's we need to get that person to go from being a quote unquote lead or being a prospect to being a customer or being a client. And that is the conversion that happens. Like the biggest conversion is like, did they sign up and pay you, right? Are they now would they call themselves your client? But then there's all these little conversions that happen along the way, right? Where they go from different stages. We can divide up the whole process into stages. But yeah, like most of the time, people focus on the marketing. And it's funny to me saying this as somebody who's specialized in marketing, like it's not that important in accounting. Marketing is way less important than sales and that conversion that happens because we have plenty of leads most of the time, right? Most of the time.
Most firm owners have way too many clients anyway. And
you're
trying to get rid of volume and you want quality, high-paying clients. So in reality, you really don't need more people. We just need to sift through, weed out, clean up, get rid of low-hanging fruit, focus on these A, B clients, and then also say, okay, well, when a new lead or referral does come to me, which is the marketing part, how do I convert only the good ones, the ones that I want?
Identify the ones that are going to be the right fit for your firm, that are going to be willing to pay, that are going to need the services you have, that are going to value you, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yep. That's the important part. So I like how you said, though, there's many conversions along the way.
Yes. Yeah. So for me, that would be, in tech, when I was in a tech company, we really defined these pretty well. We had leads, we had marketing qualified leads, we had sales qualified leads, we had all these different acronyms. And honestly, I think we argued a bit too much about what they meant. Mm-hmm. But they define certain actions that the prospect took. Like if you got to the stage of sending out a contract or an agreement for them to sign, that was a specific stage. And then actually signing it was another stage. So we could actually bucket all of our leads or all of our contacts into different stages and know who to follow up with. And that reminds me of something I really wanted to say when we started this conversation, which is that in my experience, a big problem in the conversions in the sales process in most firms is the lack of follow-up. That they get so busy, we all get so busy, like you said, we don't have time, that we just don't follow up in a timely manner with people who want to engage us. And then I think we all know that's not a good experience. Like nobody wants to be left hanging when they're ready and eager. And that happens way too much. And so a lot of times it's just we don't follow up with the right prospects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also another challenge is following up and knowing what to say and not doing it in a way where you're pushy, annoying, like a nag. And I think that's why most people don't follow up. At least that's what I've been told when I've done my talk on follow up. Michelle, I don't want to be annoying. I don't want to be pushy. You know what? They're going to call me when they're ready. I don't need to follow up with them. And then you're wondering how come they never called you. And if you're doing tax planning and you could save them, $100,000 this tax season or this year. And if you don't get it done by December 31st, you know that they're going to pay a high bill to the IRS. And you're just shaking your head like, why didn't I hear from them? Because your prospects are too busy.
I personally know a firm owner who does not do any follow-up. He'll do a call and then he'll do a proposal and send that out. And then they all just hang out there forever. And if somebody signs up, they sign up.
And I call that proposal land, which is why if you've been listening to my podcast for a while or whoever's listening right now, you know that you never send out a proposal in Michelle's world. That doesn't happen because otherwise they end up in proposal land like this firm owner that you know.
They're just sitting in somebody's inbox
They're
forever.
sitting in someone's inbox. You're never going to hear from that person. And at the end of the day, people do want to be led and they do want to be told what to do. They're looking for leadership and guidance in one of the areas that they suffer in the most. You are the most trusted advisor. If you're listening to this podcast, or if you're listening to Blake and David, you guys are the most trusted advisors out there. If you are, then you have to guide your clients and tell them what to do so they have a successful business, their QuickBooks, their books are all intact, they're paying the least amount to the IRS, or they're out of resolution. You've negotiated with them for whatever it is. You are the leader. You get to solve their problem, and you need to take ownership. So doing proposals is actually a passive approach to your conversions, which is why you probably have a low conversion rate. Or in this situation with the firm owner, their conversions are very low. Where the clients that I work with, they're all above 50% conversion.
Wow, that's great. Yeah. I mean, I imagine that with this method, it's probably like 10% or less.
Oh, it's less than that because they're in proposal land. And a lot of the proposal stuff goes into people's junk and spam boxes.
Yep.
So it doesn't even land in their inbox.
So let me ask you this, Michelle, when you say don't use proposals, that makes me think of some of the sales folks that I've gotten to know over the years, who, do like enterprise software sales, which, that's a really long sales process. And I would say it's just as difficult, if not more difficult than what we do in CPA land, in terms of, signing people up.
Yeah. I mean, in CPA land, you can just do it right then and there on the first meeting.
See, that's amazing. So these guys are, they're trying to get somebody to buy NetSuite, and it's going to be, a multi, hundreds of thousands of dollars contract for a year or something. Right.
Yep.
And one thing I've seen that they do that's really successful is they never leave a meeting without another meeting scheduled.
Totally. I'm all about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like that is something
really important.
It's really easy to implement because you just make it a disciplined thing where you say, you're talking to a prospect and you say, all right, we're going to decide right now, do we continue or do we stop? And then you've got it boxed out on your calendar. So there's going to be a follow-up, right? You don't have to worry about a task that you're going to forget to do because you've got like a million things.
And we're all just too busy. It's almost like when you and I talk, I'm always like, okay, when's our next podcast or when's our next meeting? If it doesn't get on the calendar, it's not going to happen.
It's true.
Even when I saw you in person and we're like, oh yeah, we're going to schedule something for 2 or 3 months out. I go, okay, let me make myself a calendar reminder to send Blake a couple options in the next 2 months.
Yep.
Because if it's not on the calendar, I'm not going to remember anything from 2 months ago. We've got way too much going on. So never leave a meeting without a follow-up scheduled is the best way to go about anything you're doing, be it with a current client, with a prospect, with your staff. Just always have something on the calendar for in the future.
I love
It's
it.
like your personal life. I don't know, Blake, I know you got a kid and you got your family, but do you all go to the dentist?
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
actually got one. I just got my reminder for my appointment on Monday.
Right. Every time you leave the dentist, they're always booking you out for your next 6-month appointment, or I like to go every 3 months, or your next 3-month appointment. Always. It's like clockwork. They have it just dialed in. We all need to be like our dental offices.
So actually, there's something that the dentist that I go to did that I've never seen before, which is if you're rushing out and you forget to book, their software will just automatically book you an appointment 6 months out, and then send you the calendar invite and then start reminding you. And that happened to me once, and I was like, I didn't book this appointment. And I called and I asked, and she said, the receptionist said, oh yeah, that's how it works. If you don't book, it books for you.
Wow.
And then
They're really on top of it.
Right? And I thought that's genius, because most people are just going to accept the appointment and come in. Or if it doesn't work for them, they'll call.
Yeah, they'll call and they'll let you know.
And by the way, their software, now we can get into the tech stuff, right? Their software sends a text message asking you to confirm. You just have to reply with a letter C to confirm. And they call you. They do all that follow up for every appointment. I've never not gotten both a text message and a phone call from their office.
I think I've had the same.
It's good.
And they have it is a great technology. And I guess for a firm owner, Blake, what do you feel is the latest, greatest accounting technology that could help with follow-up, that could help with standardizing some engagement letters? And, I'm all about getting paid right then and there. So what softwares could also implement that where the firm owner could get paid right then and there on that first meeting?
So this is nothing crazy new. This has been around for a few years, and I think that's why it's definitely worth looking at, because it's matured. It falls into the broad category of proposal software, or if we don't want to use that word, engagement letter software. And there's a couple options, 3 actually, that I would recommend checking out. There's Ignition, which used to be called Practice Ignition, which is focused specifically on the accounting profession. There's Go Proposal, which is similar to Ignition, out of the UK. And then there's a more generic solution that I used personally in my practice, because those 2 accounting specific tech solutions weren't really mature yet when I started my practice. And that's called PandaDoc. And I like all 3 of them for different reasons. I know people who love them and are passionate about them and would recommend, you check out all 3. And I guess basically what they do is they provide you a way to create a document, call it a proposal, call it an engagement letter, whatever it is. It outlines the scope of your services, what you're going to do for the client, puts it all in writing, as you should. If you are a CPA, you always need to have that engagement letter protecting you.
Yes, always.
And even if you're not a CPA, you should have that engagement letter protecting you and defining what you're doing. Put it in writing, because you'll be surprised what people think that you were going to do if you didn't. And so it goes out in writing. It's a digital document, allows the recipient to sign it electronically. There's e-signature involved in all of these now. And then the most important part, and the part I think you're going to love, Michelle, is they can put in their payment information right then and there, and you can require it for them to be able to sign and accept. And you can have it be ACH, so you're getting paid electronically. You can have it be credit card. You can choose most of the time these days what you want it to be, or you can turn that off and just bill them directly, send them an invoice every month or whatever.
Highly don't recommend that.
Yeah, I try to avoid that if at all possible. Sometimes, if you're working with really big companies, they've got this AP process where it's like, it's just not going to happen. You don't have the leverage and you got to do it. But yeah, whenever possible, get them on automatic payments. Oh, and that's the part I didn't mention yet, is you can set it up so that payment information, their credit card, their ACH, their bank account just gets billed every single month or quarter or week, or heck, you could probably even do it daily if you wanted to. I do know a firm that has done really, really well that does weekly billing. And I'm curious, Michelle, if you have run into that with any of your clients. So it basically, they just, instead of doing a monthly fee, they say, we're going to break that up into weekly payments and we bill you weekly. And it's worked great for them. The firm is called Summit CPA. And Jody Grundon, the founder, I think he's like the chair of the digital CPA conference now. He's a big shot. And he's the only one I've ever heard doing it. And
yeah, I've never heard anyone doing it weekly. I would recommend that if a client is having cash flow problems or challenges on a monthly basis, and it would help them from a cash flow perspective, then weekly. And if you have the system set up and the right accounting technology in your firm to do that, then that would work. So does Ignition and PandaDoc and the other one, do they all allow weekly billing?
I know that I believe Ignition does. I'm not sure about PandaDoc or Go Proposal, but there's ways to work around it if it doesn't do it natively. I mean, all of these like electronic payment services now will give you a lot of flexibility. So
yeah, I mean, if people are doing their books monthly and everything else monthly, I don't see anything wrong with just staying on monthly. If there's some benefit to going weekly, then go for it. But
I would say for me, I would do it for the clients where I had weekly services. So that would be the higher tier clients. They're paying more, so breaking it into weekly makes it feel less, painful for them and helps their cash flow smooth more.
Yeah, especially if you're having weekly meetings, you're doing their payroll, you're doing other more frequent tasks. But if it's just, monthly books, or maybe they're on a maintenance plan, or maybe they're just doing, tax and accounting services for the whole year and it's broken up monthly.
I think the idea
at the end of the day, it's the same number.
Yeah. And it's whatever works for your firm and your clients, right? Whatever is, helps them. And so that's what's great about the flexibility of this, right? And the beauty is you get it on auto pay. And now the money's coming into you on the first of every month or at the beginning of every week or the beginning of every quarter. And you're not financing your client's accounting services, right? You're getting the cash up front and you're able to pay out your staff. And that helped me grow a lot. I didn't need a lot of capital to build my accounting firm when I started it because I was getting paid up front.
Yeah, that is the most important piece because, and I'm sure you've experienced this too, Blake, but so many firm owners come to me and I ask, how much is your receivables? I've heard 67,000, 100,000. One gentleman had over 300,000 in AR.
Wow.
And there's, I'd say 25% of everyone we talk to, they've even said, Michelle, it's so bad that there's even people I've never billed for. I don't even know because I haven't even had time to do the billing.
Yeah.
And now that is a real problem.
Well, and that happened to I know a CPA who's behind on his billing. He hasn't billed for last year's taxes. I guess what would that be, 2021? And I know because my father-in-law's a client and hasn't gotten a bill yet and called me asking, did I miss something? Yeah, and I know why. He's a really smart CPA. He's super good at his job. He is very experienced. Just, you know what I mean? Like, really good professional. But he's so busy, he just doesn't focus on it and he loses sight of it. And then it doesn't happen. And it's kind of crazy to think that like he's got work he's done, he just hasn't billed for yet. And
I mean, he hasn't even been paid for last year.
And it's not because we wouldn't pay it, right? It's just because we haven't gotten the bill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to me.
So,
and that's I wonder how much revenue he hasn't collected. So he's basically financing it. The clients are not paying interest on that.
Yeah.
So it's just a lose all around. So what I'm curious of, and maybe we could walk through this because I know if you're listening, you're good with numbers and I like to break things down. And I have no idea what the investment would be on Ignition, PandaDoc, or Go Proposal. But on a monthly basis, like how much would that run a firm to become more efficient, having a standardized process for engagements, for getting paid up front, for having a way to collect payment right then and there? as
Yeah.
the engagement letter is also being signed. Like, what does that run a firm on average? I know there's a lot of variables.
Sure. Well, so if you just look at, the pricing for Ignition, right? Starts at $69 a month, and goes up to $369 a month, depending on how many engagements you've got. So if you're a decent sized firm, you're going to be paying a few $100s a month to start, and then you're going to pay transaction fees on top. So whenever you receive an ACH payment, they're going to take a little piece of that. Or credit cards, you could pay the credit card fee. And so this is the psychological barrier that you got to overcome as a firm is you've got to be okay with spending a few $100s, and then it's going to go up to probably thousands because you're going to want to take credit cards, because it's way better to pay that, in my opinion, it's way better to pay that percentage than to be spending time trying to follow up with people and get paid.
Well, and that's my point. So let's just say they're spending $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
Is that a good amount?
Yeah, sure. So I use it for some of our services with Earmark Media. We do podcast production and whatnot, and I accept credit cards, right? And so yes, I am paying now up to like a few $1,000s a month for this. Okay, but it's worth it to me. Yes,
totally. So let's just say a firm's doing $2,000 or $3,000 a month of expenses to get paid up front, have engagement letters signed. Great. Let's go through the example of the firm that that hasn't billed for 2021 yet.
Okay.
How many hours do you think it's going to take him to figure out who he hasn't billed, what to charge them, and to do all the paperwork, all the admin, get the invoices out, and then hope that you get the email and actually click on the link to pay the bill? How many hours do you even think that would take a firm owner who has to literally stop what they're doing, go back in time, recollect everything that they did for a client, bill for it, put the invoice together, send the invoice, and then hope to get paid?
I think if he hasn't been doing it for most of the year, which it seems like it's been going on, it's going to be days of if he just sat down and did it, right? We're talking days. Let's say it's a couple days. Okay. I think that would be generous, right? So now we're talking
3 days of work. So let's just say 24 hours.
Yeah.
Minimum.
Yeah. And multiply that by your typical billing rate of a partner.
Yeah. And so what's that?
That could be
400, 500?
Yeah. 200, anywhere from a couple hundred to over $500 an hour.
Okay. We'll just go in the middle. $250 an hour. Let's just say that was the price tag you put on yourself. So that's $6,000 of
right
time.
There.
Just right there. $6,000. But what about if you had that money in your bank account, what you could have done from a growth perspective in the firm in 2022, which he didn't do because he didn't have that cash flow available. And what if you collected interest on that money? Or other things. So, I mean, just on the hourly part, you're already at $6,000 of one time, but you also have headaches attached to it. You have stress attached to it. You have it putting on the back burner every month because I'm going to guess this firm owner wanted to do this every month, but it's like, no, I'm too busy. I can't do it. I'll wait until next month. And then you keep waiting. And then I truly believe like that this is going to take someone like 2 weeks to do. There's no way they can bill all their clients in 3 days, but
and you can't just sit down and do it, right? It's got to be over time. And then you've got to, deal with people saying like, wait, I didn't pay you for this yet. Like the people who are confused.
The back and forth, the email.
Yeah.
So then you're going to have a slew of emails, and then you're going to have to go through the invoices and see who's paid you and who hasn't paid you on top of that.
Yeah. And where the other challenge that this solves using this kind of software is that you can create a standard set of services and the language around those, a library of services, and you can just add those into your documents. And so you're using the same terminology, and you can have standardized pricing for what you're doing. And so you're not having to create a new document from scratch every time, which and that's, I think, part of the reason why people don't send them is because they don't sit down, and it's like the end of the day and you're tired and you're trying to write an engagement letter from scratch again. And I think it's almost better to simply...
sounds daunting. I wouldn't want to do it either.
Well, and this is why I think there's if you don't want to do any of this, you're probably better off just having a standard hourly rate engagement letter. Say, hey, you want to work with me? Sign this. I'm going to bill you hourly. Now, I don't think that's the ideal way to price services these days.
Not at all.
But if you're not going to have a standardized process for this engagement letter thing and collecting the money, then that's better than somewhere in between.
Yeah,
right? Which is like, if you're trying to do fixed pricing, if you're trying to do value pricing, whatever you want to call what you're doing, and you're not getting away from hourly, you've got to implement the tech to do that, is like what I'm trying to say.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
And I think tech has a high ROI, and tech will also help you have a higher conversion rate, because the person who hasn't billed and you think you did work and you think you got a new client, you're not really having a new client until they paid you. And the fact that you're doing work without getting paid, there's no value attached to it. So people don't have a value to you as a firm owner. That's just a little out of date. You can't do business without getting paid. I don't think you go on an airplane without paying for your ticket first. There's so many services where it's like, nope, you pay your copay in advance before you get on, or you pay your ticket in advance before you get on.
It's funny, unless you're Elon Musk, because I just heard that. Yeah, right. So Twitter has some sort of contract with, the airlines, so that, when you're corporate, you don't have to pay in advance because you're special, right? So they have like a $200,000 bill for flights that Musk said, I'm not going to pay it. So that's the risk the airlines take when they do that.
It is a risk.
Yeah.
I think it's probably the worst business model ever, but here at the Abundant Accountant, I'm always about you having more abundance in your life, not only in your bank account, but in your personal life. And if you're stressed out about who you billed, who you haven't billed, how much to bill, you keep putting it off, that's taxing on your mental health. That's exhausting. And that's where burnout starts to happen. Invest in one of these technologies. Like Blake said, he knows them better than I do, but it will help on the conversion side. And I'm all about conversions. And when you convert, that means the money hit the bank account and they became a client. Until someone's paid you and the money's in the account, they're really not a true client.
Now, the one thing that people do with this type of software that you don't recommend, Michelle, is they'll do the call and they'll put together the proposal and they'll send it out to the client, and the client then is looking at it all by themselves.
Yeah, so, I don't recommend that.
So do you recommend creating the document and then showing that to the client in a call, on a call?
Totally, yeah. You
and
have
get them
a sales meeting. And then at the end, when you share with them what the investment is to work with you, you also will review what I call the engagement letter together, where you'll go through what the engagement is, what's included in it, and also be really clear on what's not included. So there's no scope creep in the future. But one of the things like this helps with as well is scope creep. So you won't be doing other work or anything else that wasn't in the engagement letter. And I think a lot of firm owners we talk to have a lot of scope creep. The other thing that going through the engagement letter and getting paid right away in that first meeting helps alleviate are objections. If a client has an objection to anything, be it they need to think about it, price, talk to their business partner, talk to their wife or husband, they need a day, you're going to get to know what the true objection is right then and there, and you can handle it. Where if you take the passive approach and just keep sending proposals and then hoping that they're going to get back to you, you're not taking the upfront approach, and you're going to waste more time. And then, like you shared earlier, if there's no follow-up process and you're not following up in a timely manner, then you're also just missing even more opportunities. Yeah. And I believe from speaking to so many firm owners that every missed opportunity is the missed person you're not helping. And each of you wants to help more people. You want to help the quality people who appreciate you. But if you don't have the processes in place, you can't help people.
Sorry, I'm just so eager to
go for
interject there. Well, the other thing is when you're just sending out the proposal, you don't get that objection handling opportunity,
Correct.
Right? You don't. So
that's exactly right. It's too passive. So there's no way the prospect can share, hey, I want to think about it. Hey, you know what? This is a lot of money. I've never paid this much before. Whatever the objection is, they're not able to handle it.
And you don't get that intel as a firm owner as to why they aren't signing up. And that to me that's super valuable information. So you want to
valuable information.
And so it might be uncomfortable to hear that from somebody on a phone call, Like to actually, because that's what's going to happen, right? Even if your close rate's 50% by not doing this, you're still going to have 50% of those phone calls that end with, okay, well, we're probably not the right fit for each other, right? And but that can be uncomfortable at first, but it's super important to get the information as to why. Totally. Is it the price, right? Is it what is it? Is it a competitor? Is it whatever it is? You got to find it out, right? Because then you can improve.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Well, Blake,
and you're not going to get it emailing them, right? You're not going to get it emailing them a month later saying like, hey, by the way, is there any reason you didn't sign up for my services?
Because they've completely forgotten. They're not going to be honest, and they're going to give you what I call a false objection just to make you feel better, or they don't hurt your feelings.
Yeah.
Which is a whole nother conversation. But I think today this was really great. I think the moral of the story is invest in something on the technology side to make your life a lot easier and never have to wonder who you build, who you haven't. Get rid of all of your AR so you can have this year your best year ever and have more money in your bank account and lots of cash flow. So I just want to say thanks again, Blake, for being here with us today on the Abundant Accountant podcast. It's always an honor to have you. I love chatting with you. I think our conversations are always fun. Hopefully that firm gets their act together.
I agree, Michelle. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on here. And yes, I'm actually going to be talking to that CPA next week and doing my best to help him out.
Awesome. And if someone wants to get on board with Earmark and get their 1 CPE a week, how do they do that?
Go to earmarkcpe.com. You can put in your email address and I will send you all the links to download the app. You can also find it on the App Store or on the Google Play Store. Just search Earmark CPE from your phone and download the app and sign up.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for being here with us today on the Abundant Accountant podcast. It was an honor to have you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Hey, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining Blake and I today on a very amazing, fun podcast of the Abundant Accountant podcast. Remember, if you want to get your CPEs and get 1 CPE per week, Earmark CPE. To do that, you can download his app on your iPhone or your Android phone and really dive into it. I mean, you can get, I think it was 40 hours of CPE in 1 year just by downloading the app and listening to one and you have to take a quiz. It's just such a great thing. Such a great tool. We talked today about accounting technology. This is a great accounting technology tool to make your life more efficient. So dive in, download the app, and get to it, because I know a lot of people cram once, twice a year to try to get all their CPEs done. So make sure to do that. And also, if you're exhausted from being on the daily financial roller coaster ride, or you're discounting your fees, you resent your clients, you feel like you're seen as a commodity, and you're saying, I can't have another tax season like what is about to come right now, then make sure to head on over to theabundantcall.com to book your call with us. I want you to know that it's not your fault. No one is teaching you how to not be seen as a commodity, how to charge premium fees, how to not resent your clients, how to not have burnout, and all of these things. And it all comes down to what we spoke about today on the podcast of conversions. How do we confidently convert clients and have them pay us premium fees? How do we make sure that our clients appreciate us for the value that we provide and get paid our worth, and let go of clients who don't serve us, who suck the energy and time out of us? And how do we do that without any fear, guilt, or anxiety? That's what we talk about here at The Abundant Accountant. So if you want to book your phone call and explore what possibilities there might be, head on over to theabundantcall.com. Whatever your biggest challenge is, trust me, I've seen it. I know how to overcome it. And my team and I look forward to speaking with you soon. Have a beautiful day.